Hi. My name is Ioan Constantin. I'm with Orange, Romania. Have been working in cybersecurity for some 20 years now, almost half of that time with these guys here. And today I will discuss a few of the things that a large enterprise such as Orange, Romania learns and does well after a cybersecurity incident. I hope you like my memes. These are not AI, these are like I did the memes. They're not original memes, but I had to reproduce them. We will discuss basically why we're here. We will discuss the incident, and I'll highlight what happened, and crucial, what didn't happen. The scope, how bad was it, what worked, what didn't work, and foremost, what lessons we've learned from this. And before I move on to the, well, not so boring things, just a few things and house rules, because we need to have house rules for this session. First, myself, I'm a cybersecurity person with Orange Romania. I do mostly R&D stuff, but from time to time, I tend to be the guy you call when things go south. And at one point in February 2025, things went south for Orange Romania. Why this session? Because we want to share with this community, this amazing community here at DefCamp, what we've learned by doing it, by doing good things, right things, and then by doing not so good things. Why DefCamp? This is an absolute blast. Everyone here, you are top of your games. You're the best, right? And we want to share this with you. We want to get your feedback. We want to learn about what your take on this is, how you or your company would have dealt with such an incident, and we want to learn from you as well. There are a couple of, actually 3 things that I want to get ahead of. First, this is not a mea culpa or nostra culpa session. My scope here is not to discuss why Orange Romania was not prepared or was not sufficiently prepared to deal with some technical stuff. We actually were. Second, I'm not going to share information that I cannot share with you or shouldn't share with you. And third, there's no attribution here. We won't discuss who the author or authors of this breach were. Now, after I disappointed you with those 3 things, let's go over what happened. So, in February 2024, and this is a bit of storytelling from my perspective, well, I was at home and I was watching some TV show on Netflix. It was maybe 7 p.m. Phone started ringing. It was my boss. He got a notification. I mean, Orange Romania, we did get a notification from our partners at Orange Group, They were notified by a journalist, a tech journalist, one of the most respected tech journalists out there, about the claims of this group that were presumably in possession of around 6 gigabytes or even 7 gigabytes of files that were exfiltrated from a Orange Romania system, right? So I was at home. I was on the couch watching Netflix or something, and the phone rang, and things needed to be done. So we, of course, went through the process, and we've learned that starting February 23rd of February 25, an unknown malicious actor has breached a Jira instance that was exposed on the internet, and they exfiltrated approximately 7 gigabytes of data, just a pinch over 12,000 files. February 24, we've confirmed the breach. February 24th, but later on that day, this malicious actor has posted that archive of the leaks on breachforums.sc back then. Okay, so this was the timeline from my perspective on February 24. What happened immediately after was, well, war rooms, a lot of coffee, stale pizzas, a lot of who did this, why did I do it, is this really us, did we get hacked, what's the info there, you know, all those questions that one would prefer not to receive, well, we did it all. And of course, there was a lot of tear shedding, lots of cybersecurity people weeping here, because it was probably the first, I mean, not probably, certainly the first real cybersecurity incident that that Orange Romania has gone through. What didn't happen? And I want to stress this to the point that I will probably make t-shirts with this message here, right? And give them away. At no time were Orange Romania services affected. All the SLAs were kept, everything worked fine, your data, voice communications, your whatever, everything was up and running. At no point were the services of Orange Romania affected by this breach. This was a data breach. We're all cybersecurity professionals. We know what that is. But I want to stress this point. Because sometimes, in these types of incidents, information can get a bit mixed up when you try to communicate as best as you can and as fast as you can with your stakeholders. So, again, stressing this point, SLAs were up, services were up. Now, let's discuss this thing here. And I believe that probably, you know, a large part of you are probably here for this slide. What actually happened? You have attack mappings there. But basically, we had a production instance of Jira that was exposed on the internet. This is attack 1078. We had, unfortunately, active credentials collected through an info stealer from a personal device of one legitimate user of this Jira instance. This is attack 1589. We had exploitation, access, data collection, and exfiltration. These are attack 1119 and 1048 respectively. Why did it happen? What were the vulnerabilities? Perimeter was exposed. That instance of Jira was available in the internet. That instance of Jira was using some local accounts. Those accounts, being local, was not under the provision of our password policies, plural, that we enforce in our federated systems and federated domains. It was an outdated version of Jira, but this didn't really play the role in the breach. But it did play the role in not supporting technical controls. Because it was an outdated version of Jira, it didn't support MFA on local accounts. This is the one slide story of what happened and how it happened. You have it all here. We've communicated in the past, we've communicated extensively in the past about this breach. I believe this is our first time trying to present the technical aspects to the technical people. You have the MITRE attack mapping there. You can do your own kill chains or whatever. What they didn't do. So this is what happened. The last slide was how they did it. This is what they didn't do. At no time they had file system access on that Jira instance. They only had user land through the web interface. They literally log into the web interface and they run some calls on that one Jira API that everyone uses to push data and pull data. They didn't encrypt anything, no crypto lockers, no ransomware. That Jira instance was isolated from other production networks, no lateral movement whatsoever. I don't believe that they targeted lateral movement because of the vector that they use for entry, for access. So I don't think it was in their scope. Definitely no RCE. They didn't have file access. They couldn't interact with anything that was actually executable there. So no implants, no persistence, no backdoors, and no attacks on data integrity. This was an access denied eventually type of situation, and I mean, it's been some time since, and I think I can joke about it, saying that what they did is that they provide a backup of that Jira instance for us online. We don't thank them for it. We have their own backups, but they didn't, by any means, affect the integrity of the data there. But what worked well? And you would probably think that not that many things worked well because, we got breached. Actually, it did. A lot of things were, were fine in terms of how we reacted, of what our response was to this happening. What you see here is a list of things, whatever, bullet points of things. They are not actually bullet points, you get it. Things that had happened in a time frame, in a time span of days. Of course, our efforts to coordinate the response and to go to the data and to communicate with the stakeholders lasted for weeks and months. But the initial response, this had happened in a matter of days. Again, coffee, stale pizzas, and a lot of war rooms. First, teamwork. And I cannot stress this enough. And I know this is an overplayed use of the word and everybody does teamwork. No, not like this. Everyone came together. Came together. I apologize. And these were cross-functional teams. Teams that don't usually interact in a war room to discuss data breaches, right? You had people from technology departments, from IT departments, from business, from information security, from legal and general counsels, from communications. Everyone was there, right? Present and ready to work together seamlessly with a very clear given scope, right? Our scope was to isolate, mitigate, communicate, and be transparent with our stakeholders. Coordination. Of course, some of these stakeholders were external. People's data was leaked online. We had great collaboration with some of the national authorities. And again, this is not gushing over our hopefully good relations with the NSC. But again, I'd like to thank them. They were really close to us. They helped us through this. They were present, and we worked great with them and other national authorities to get this through. We, of course, on the technical side, we run mitigation, we run forensics, we isolated everything, we started looking into things, evidence preservation, because, this is like a legal process as well. This could be a legal issue. They breached a system, an information system without rights, so this could very well require that evidence be preserved. And then we had the heroes in this. Some of us, the technical people, we did the grunt work. We know how to do it, we did it. But then you have those people that, they never wear the capes, but they should. The business teams, the consumer teams, and the communication teams. They were so ahead of this and actually helpful and present, being there right next to us, trying to get the information that we could provide to them, and then push that information in a coordinated way to the stakeholders, to the people that were asking questions. Questions such as, hey, has my data been exposed on the internet? If so, what data? To what degree? Who could use that data? In what way? Right? And of course, finally, there is this part where, as it is with all cybersecurity incidents, you need to have a formal notification to the national authorities. You need to run through the incident process. We did that as well. These are more than silver linings, right? In what was a storm of things that hit us, right, back then in February. These were processes that worked, which, again, for a very large company such as Orange, is a good thing. And probably some of you work for similarly large enterprises as well. And I'm not a process guy, but I know that, some of them tend to be there just so that you could say you have a process, you have a tick for your audit. No, these were processes that actually worked, like the crisis management part, the communications part, internal communications, external communications with all the stakeholders, everything worked. I'm not saying it worked flawlessly, but it worked to a degree that the technical people, we could focus on the technical stuff, the comms people, they could focus on the comms stuff, so on and so forth. But what didn't work? Well, it's pretty obvious that some things didn't work. Well, enforcing controls, that was not our, we didn't have the best time in doing that, right? we had technical controls in place. But unfortunately, this Jira instance was treated as an exception to some of those technical controls. Enforcement and audits for those technical controls in the Jira instance were not necessarily rigorous. I'm not going to get into why that was. I don't think it's important, honestly, but this is one thing that didn't work. And there's another one. The lack of awareness, or at least the improper amount of awareness to cybersecurity threats. I know that we are cybersecurity people here, or information security people, or compliance, or regulatory, whatever, what have you. And we like to discuss awareness, and we like to treat awareness as a thing that we provide, or at least contribute to, and that other people will consume, right? We are the ones that should provide the content for what needs to be followed. Well, sometimes we are the ones that are more prone to not follow that content. In this case, some users could, even myself included, I can get very comfortable with working to exceptions from security controls. Let's do a very quick raise of hands here. Who of you have administrative access, like a local administrative users on your on your company-issued workstations? Whoa, I'm actually surprised. It's like probably 10% or less. That's good. Not as good as it could be. This way of pushing things forward by considering that just because you are in the know, just because you are like an technical person, you could be accepted from a technical control that would otherwise prevent really bad things to happen. This is not good. This doesn't work. This is proof that security awareness doesn't always reaches its purpose. So basically, this was what didn't work for us. Technical controls were not enforced, and there was a tiny bit of lack of awareness, or rather some users got comfortable working through an exception path rather than through a control. But, this was a data breach. This was an incident that did a lot of work in pushing our, our own processes and our own cybersecurity steps ahead of what it was, and maybe just a tiny step ahead of others. Every lesson that we learn is a catalyst for change, right? Everything that we internalize in our working experience, in our in whatever facility you have, right, in your technical work, everything that you manage to internalize should lead to change. If you get comfortable with as is, bad things will happen. Or at least good things will not happen. So this is what happened to us as well. I'm just going to go through some of the things that we did and actively are doing just as a matter of lessons that we learned and that could be applicable to you, maybe, to your enterprises, to your companies. You need to ensure that your data policies are in place, are audited, and are respected, right? Are correctly implemented. You need to know what type of data you store. You need to minimize the volumes of data that you store locally. If you don't trust your cloud providers, then don't store it there either. You should always ask yourself, do I need to have this data at hand? On my premises, in someone else's cloud, or in my cloud? Always, at all points in any process. You need to have anomaly detection. AI always does a lot of heavy lifting these days, but honestly, it's such an overused word that it kind of lacks meaning here. You know, anomaly detection for a very large network is on the network side, right? You need to have the capacity to understand that an anomaly event could lead to the exploitation of an unknown unknown. 0 days, you know, you need to have it there. You don't need to rely on policy-based stuff and signature-based stuff. You need to push a bit forward, although it is costly, and you need to run through this process of implementing anomaly detection in your networks. You need to ensure that access for the privileged users is managed and audited. I saw maybe 10 raised hands of people who had local administrative accounts. Let's do another round for people who have administrative accounts, administrative access in general to platforms that are not local on your device. Oh, wow, really? You see, that's great. Again, maybe 10 of you. Privilege access management is one way of doing it. There are definitely other ways of implementing audits and controls for people who have admin access to your platforms. I'm not saying you should cut admin access to your platforms. I'm just saying that you need to know who does what at all times. You need to ensure that vectors that would otherwise not be qualified or at least considered for a threat event are controlled and monitored through a platform, maybe a PAM platform. It could be something else, but you need to have it, right? And you need to have MFA inside. I know that we get lazy and systems that are only accessible from our intra-networks, you could consider that safe because of the perimeter. It's safe in general. No, you need to have MFA inside. It's a common way of interacting with things that require your logon. Why not doing on your intranet apps as well? Web application firewalls. If your exposure on the internet side is large, you have a lot of apps that needs to be published on the internet, you need to have a lot of people brought in on those apps, just throw in a firewall there. WAFs are 2 cents a piece. You could range from open source to extremely expensive, but just have one in place. And finally, passwords are still a thing. I would prefer to use passkeys. I would prefer to use biometrics everywhere, but we're probably some years, maybe, I don't know, 5 years, we're lagging behind those types of authentication methods being rolled out to enterprise-grade stuff. So make sure that your password policies are overhauled on a continuous basis. Make sure that your users clearly understand that they need to understand why there needs to be a password policy in place. And this might sound like something that everyone should know, but the reality is that it isn't. Most people don't know these things. And if they do, some people don't care about these things. Again, it's the comfort of doing things as you're used to do it, through the means of exceptions and not through the means of controls and rules. Then, forensics and threat hunting. This is something that we need to do. We were required to do after our breach. We need to isolate that affected instance of Jira and all the dependencies. We need to create snapshots. We need to have those snapshots prepared for investigations from internal first parties, second parties, and even third parties. We needed to, and we we've built something for automated data leak monitoring because, again, this was the records for some of our B2B and B2C customers. So we needed to ensure that we have a clear and current overview of what's there, what's being leaked there, what has been leaked there, just in order to get ahead of it, in order to push the right notification to the right people, right? We need to do a lot of pen testing, and you should do as well, on all your systems. Internal systems, external systems, it doesn't matter. You need to make sure that you understand how those vulnerabilities could be exploited. Yes, you are going to have a lot of CVEs. Yes, you are going to have a lot of vulnerabilities. We did as well. Everyone has CVEs. What I'm saying is that you should know, and we now know, how those vulnerabilities could be exploited. You could, drive your risk management stuff a bit more efficiently if you know that. And finally, of course, vulnerability management. This needs to be an ongoing process. This isn't something that you do on an off basis, right? Every 3 months. You get your 200 PDF reports, 200 pages PDF report from your vulnerability scanner or whatever it is that you use, and you just preserve that as an evidence for audits. This is something that you really need to do, and we are doing, and involving all the people that need to know that their systems, their applications, their whatevers could have some vulnerabilities that would otherwise be, could be managed. And communication. If this happens to a large company, one way of tackling this is to getting everyone in the loop. The stakeholders are basically everyone in your company and those who are external to your company and affected of that breach. But it should be clear that people in your company need to be informed, need to be part of working to drive your response, right? These are just some of the things that we did and are still doing, right? This has become part of our processes. This is not something that we did just once because of a crisis and then forgot about it. No, this has been pushed to our processes. The processes were enriched. The process people were very, very glad, very happy. They had a field day. They couldn't stop talking about their processes. The most boring thing ever. But honestly, just by simply pushing a way of doing work, a workflow, to something that is opposable to everyone in your company, in your enterprise, this is a win. This is a way of moving forward, right? So what we did, we needed to create this notification strategy because customers were affected. And we wanted to be efficient and effective in reaching out to those customers, getting ahead of it, and telling them, hey, unfortunately, your data might have been leaked to the internet. So we've created this strategy, right, between the two very large business groups in our company, the B2C people and the B2B people, right? We created this multi-channel approach, ranging from messages sent from email, SMS, phone calls to face-to-face meetings. We have integrated our CRMs in order to track the way that we communicated, right? We are a very big company. We have a lot of customers, like 10 plus million B2C customers, if I'm not mistaken. We need to know who was contacted, by whom, and who needs to be contacted. The CRM has already the data there, right? You already know who your customers are. That's why it's called the CRM. Then you had the internal communications. Of course, everyone was involved, including the board, including the CEO of the company, the CDO, everybody. Everybody was on board, right? So we needed to ensure that our colleagues knew what was happening. We needed to ensure that they were able to point any stakeholder, external or internal, to the right information at the right time, should it be required. So we did this internal communications process involving the CEO of the company and all the management, and then all the technical stakeholders and the comm stakeholders and the business stakeholders. We did some mini sites on the intranet that provided some helpful information on how to prevent such events in the future. And of course, we did push a lot of effort in training our colleagues in the front line, the ones that were picking up the calls from people who might have learned that Orange was hacked. This was crucial. This was essential, right? This was not a obvious way of doing business for them. The frontline people are very seldomly, fortunately, confronted with such incidents. So they needed to understand what was happening, and they needed to understand how they can support the customers with the right information. And of course, we run everything through dedicated tracks, right? We had people running the communications with the B2B customers, then with the B2C customers, the internal comms, and the external stakeholders. So everyone was on board, but everybody knew what they were doing, right? And all the stakeholders were in the loop. At all times, we had checkpoints and validations. One such checkpoint could be, and this is like from a vertical perspective, right? Starting with board meetings that were were happening pretty much daily, on a daily basis, and distilled down to people from the various departments, various business areas that were supporting the effort to go through this incident, that had their own meetings for their own specific topics, right? We had people from our IT department working to isolate evidences for forensics. We had people from our technology departments working to update authentication methods and firewalls and what have you. So these checkpoints were a crucial part of this strategy to get ahead of communicating correctly with external and internal stakeholders what was happening. Finally, we always knew that collaboration is a key to something. Or better said, I always knew that collaboration could lead to good things. But honestly, in my 20-ish years of working in cybersecurity, more or less, I didn't have a chance to go through many similar incidents, maybe 3 or 4. And at any given moment, for those incidents, before this one, we didn't need to bring someone on board, someone from the outside of our company or whatever, our enterprise, our business. This was the first time. And we are running a telecommunication business. Telecommunication is a heavily regulated business, right? We have a vast set of rules, laws, regulations, best practices, internal practices, external practices, whatever, about how to conduct our business. So for this incident, we needed to, and we did, worked, not just notified, not just extended the courtesy of letting someone know, but literally worked together with the national authorities and with our group partners. We are part of a very large multinational communications company. And the key things that we did was to very fastly and aptly react in notifying the authorities. We didn't kind of let them call us, we called them. We were always transparent. Things that could be said, that made sense to be said and transmitted to the right stakeholders were always there. All the authorities, our partners from the Orange Group, were in the know at the same level that we were internally. We, of course, needed to go through the diligence of actually verifying our due diligence from a contractual perspective, right? I don't know about you guys and your businesses, but we are dealing with maybe 20 million contracts, right? At the forefront of our business for delivering various types of services. We needed to ensure that our obligations, right, are met in a diligent way towards our stakeholders, our customers. And, of course, awareness. But this time, the awareness was not, your generic need to pass it every year cybersecurity awareness thing that everyone does in their company. This time, it was more focused. It was more it was related to the incident. It was related to specific systems. It was related to specific vectors of attack and to specific threat conditions. We wanted to ensure that the people go one step forward from, I mustn't write my password on a Post-it note and stick it on top of my laptop, to answers such as, what is Jira? Why do we use it? I've been in the business for 20 years and I don't have an answer to that. What can go wrong, or what could go wrong if you use your personal device to access data, information, whatever systems that are not yours, but they are your company's, and you store and you process data of your customers in those systems. These were the challenges that we needed to tackle with these awareness sessions. Of course, the usual stuff ran in parallel, right? Everyone needed to pass their whatever thing that everyone does, like passwords shouldn't be cat123, shouldn't be your birthday, or your mother's maiden name. But we've clearly understood that collaboration is key. We all needed to pull together. This was not a one team or two teams or three teams effort. This was not even a one company effort. This was shared with authorities, with stakeholders, with people that needed to be part of this. And finally, we have a lot of policies in place. We, well, run, again, a heavily regulated business, so everything needs to be on paper. One thing that was always difficult for, in my experience, in many of the enterprises that I've worked with or worked for, was pushing those policies, the meanings of those policies from paper to practice, right? It's always a good idea to have a document somewhere highlighting how you shouldn't, I don't know, use your laptop to download Linux distributions from various torrent sites. And that's fine. It's fine to have it in writing, but you need to push it to practice. And practice always means technical controls, right? You don't have the capacity to go from one employee to the other and remind them on a daily basis that they shouldn't use their laptops to, I don't know, play Need for Speed Underground 2. I am that old. That's the only reference I have for a PC game, Need for Speed Underground 2. Sorry. So you need to ensure that the controls, the technical stuff that you actually can implement in your systems, in your platforms, in your firewalls, in your endpoints, are backed by policies, and that those policies are pushed to practice. For example, data processing. It's a very good thing to know who does the data processing in your company. In which capacity? With which scope? You need to define and implement a baseline, right? For minimum security requirements. This is something that we did, right? And we are still doing it. This is a continuous process where we went through everything that we had, and for those, security requirements that were not previously constructed in a policy and in a technical control, well, we did it for devices, for applications, for systems, for platforms, for users, for everyone. But you need to ensure that at any given moment you have a baseline, you have this level, this bar. It is up to you to decide where you set it. It could be this high or it could be this low, but you need to ensure that you have that, because everything that falls below that bar, or hopefully on top of that bar, is something that you need to deal with. Finally, your controls. Everyone has them, but they need to be reviewed. You need to deprecate things that are no longer valid. We did this after our incident. We just went through everything that we had. Information security controls, whatever, technical controls, documentations for systems, for products, for platforms that we use. And we simply deprecated things that were not relevant. They were not there anymore, right? You have people working under a process for some platform that has been decommissioned since 2015, but the control is still there. It interacts with other controls. So you need to have this simplified and coordinated approach to ensuring that your controls are efficient. I'm not an information security, I'm not an InfoSec guy. I don't know that much about this, but I understood, like really personally understood, that you need to have a very clear approach and a very clear view of what needs to be done in your company and how it is implemented. I'm talking about cybersecurity stuff, of course. And then the education, the cybersecurity education for your employees, for your customers. It is not Orange Romania's role to educate the customers, but if we can do it as an approach to getting ahead of incidents such as this, yes, we will do it. And we did it. Multiple campaigns, internal campaigns and online campaigns for our customers that explain the threats, the the challenges in basically existing in this heavily digital social context of ours, right? Everything is an app, everything is a login, everything is something that you leave behind. So from paper to process, we went through this transformation of policies to actual working and tested controls. Technical controls, whatever, soft controls, it doesn't matter, but things that are working. We vouch for them. They are right there, and they are working well. And we monitor it, and we ensure we update it. And finally, this is a, actionable insight of sorts. It is opposable to us as well, because this is something that we've learned the hard way, you might say. But I think it's probably useful for many others. You need to stop low-risk analysis. Large companies deal with risk in terms of volumes, in terms of ensuring that your entire ecosystem of everything that exists there, platforms, users, applications, devices, whatever, contracts, are treated in a somewhat homogeneous way. That's a bad thing to do. You need to leave low-risk stuff, with a lower priority than what could actually hurt you. You need to focus on actions that could lead to incidents that are impactful. Really, stop. I mean, I'm not going to give a specific example, and this is not for us, but you should stop discussing your data classification process and maybe just discuss how that data is stored and who has access to it. It doesn't matter if it's classified, TLP red, if it lives in a bucket in your AWS S3 deployment and everyone has access to it because the password that you have there is the name of your dog. You need to prioritize your decisions by risk. If you go to the first step, then the second step kind of flows, right? It comes naturally. And you need to upgrade everything that's critical. Upgrades are costly. You need to pay money. You need to budget this. Any vendor will charge you a lot of money to move from version whatever dot who cares to whatever +1 dot who cares. This is their business model, but you need to do it. Upgrades, they don't just bring some patches for some CVEs that have been there since 2017. They will change the processes that you use to access those applications, that data. This is crucial, costly, but crucial. These are probably the 3 key points that we needed to learn, and we did under pressure. And I believe that these are applicable to most enterprises. At any point in, this is actually a very nice meme. It's not my dog. I don't know whose dog is that. It's a cute dog. During this process of surviving and thriving a cybersecurity breach, a data breach, we learned a lot of things. Some of the things were those that I just said, right? The most important thing that I want to highlight here is that security is literally everyone's job in an enterprise. It's not just my job in Orange, Romania. It's not just your job in whatever company you work for. It's everyone's job. Really. It's not just a slogan of sorts. I'm not just saying it to be said. This needs to be internalized. This needs to be distilled. This needs to be pushed into culture, not just into policy, not just into a framework, not just in a control. This needs to be as true as, honestly, it is at any given moment for everyone in a company. You need to learn to collaborate across your departments when things go south. And you need to pull your team together. You need to make them understand and accept a new goal, a common goal of bringing security in a sufficient shape so that bad things will not happen to you anymore. So what you can do today, you need to prepare, you need to communicate, you need to automate and double check. Don't rely on AI to do the work that you're supposed to do. This will basically enable you to turn incidents into opportunities. And thank you.
Thank you very much. However, as we are at 11:40, we will not be able to field the questions. Maybe just one question. You. I don't want to go without someone at least having a question, Ian.
Hello? Okay, thank you. So considering the amount of personal data that Orange has, and that was stolen in this breach, such as the state ID, names, phone numbers, and so on, why did the company have no threat hunting capabilities? And does it have now, or will the next breach be also informed by a media person, like you said?
Yeah, good question. The company does have threat hunting capabilities. The company is a large company. The company hunts to threats that it considers from our risk process. Unfortunately, for this Jura instance, that was not part of the risk process. This is the very short and brief answer. And for any other questions, because we really are cut on time here, someone needs to be on stage after me. I'll be in the Orange booth for the next, 1 hour or so. Maybe we can chat there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.